team of housing. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Can you hear?
Thank you. Yeah, I think they can hear us now. I'm sorry that you missed my speech, but introductory speeches are very, how can I say, not bureaucratic, but basically just a series of thank you and providing the context. What comes after is much more important than my opening speech. Let me introduce two speakers now. First one is Mr. Telman Maramov, Partnership and Program Management Associate, SDG Localization and Local Governments in UN Habitat. Can I say two words about you? I've been given your bio. So you work currently within the SDG Localization and Local Governments team of the Urban Practice Branch at UN Habitat as a Partnership and Program Management Associate. You hold a master degree in International Development Program Management from the Lund University and coordinating projects and partnerships specifically in Germany, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and partially in Africa. The next person I want to introduce is Ms. Mara Kosu, Coordinator of Division 4, Sustainable Development Instruments and Technologies, former DG Circular Economy, Ministry of the Environment and Energy Security of Italy. Welcome, Mara. Mara is an architect with a PhD in Territorial Policies and Local Design. She's the coordinator of the Sustainable Development Unit Division 4, the General Director for the Circular Economy at the Italian Ministry of the Environment and Energy Security, primarily dealing with the implementation, monitoring, and revision of the 2030 Agenda in Italy, the National Sustainable Development Strategy and related processes. He's a researcher from 2009 to 2022 on the issue of sustainability, environmental assessment, participation, and strategic planning. And I hope I provided a fair description of your duties, and I leave the floor to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks to you. And if I may continue, dear colleagues, many thanks to Paolo for the excellent opening remarks. And dear partners, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to join the opening of the first VLR, VSR, VNR trivia in the region, organized by UNICE, UNDESA, UCLG, and UN Habitat. And as it has been already mentioned, this workshop is part of the UNDP 14 project, Voluntary for Greener, Resilient, and Sustainable Urban Recovery in Central Asian and Eastern European countries in transition. This project is led by UN Habitat, but co-implemented with high support of UNICE, UNDESA, and UCLG. And this project is aiming to harnessing the very potential of voluntary local reviews to foster SDG localization. I would like to thank you all for your cooperation and commitment to work in hand with UN Habitat to accelerate SDG localization at the local level. I'm here also, dear colleagues, to transmit greetings from our dear Chief of the branch of the Urban Practices branch, Dr. Shipra Narangsuri, and our team lead of SDG localization and local governments team, Mr. Martin Minerva. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here due to conflicting agendas, but they are closely monitoring the process. Dear colleagues, being mindful of time, I would like to highlight a few elements from our experience on working with local and regional governments in the region. First, we see that data remains one of the main challenges. We know that despite the latest advances, data availability, data management, and disaggregation still pose great challenges for the planning and monitoring of development in the region, specifically indicator setting. For the desired goals is lacking coordination planning systems and coordination through multi-level governance. This brings me to the very essence of today's topic. Apart from multi-level governance for planning and implementation, we need to put the emphasis on cooperation for indicator setting, continuous data collection and analysis, laying the foundation for evidence-based decision-making. On one hand, local and regional governments and their associations are developing voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews. On the other hand, the national governments are developing voluntary national reviews. These two processes are inherently complementary and mutually reinforcing. Hence, the VLR, VSR, VNR connection must be strengthened. In many cases, VLRs and VLRs have informed and strengthened VNRs with fresh and grounded data on the status of the SDGs, while the national government, the ministries, national statistical offices have supported local reviews with resources and access to information. However, this cooperation still lacks sufficient attention and support. We are convinced that VLRs and VSR should be scaled up at the national level as the main tool for local and regional governments to report on their SDG progress and should complement the VNRs. This would substantially strengthen the national understanding of local challenges and ultimately lead to better planning, delivery, and reporting. But once we have established this connection, this VLR, VSR, VNR connection, what's next for us? We need to go beyond the VLR, VSR, VNR connection. A strong connection between VNR, VSR, and VLR processes are essential for the successful localization. For the successful localization of the SDGs. However, beyond their complementary nature, this connection is an entry point for the progressive deployment of effective multi-level governance arrangements within the countries. By connecting VLRs, VSRs, and VNRs, we transform multi-level governance into actions. This is done through coordination amongst the different sectors and different levels of government. For planning, policy coherence, sharing of resources, capacity building, which is what will make the SDGs achievable at the local level in the country. Dear colleagues, all in all, the transformation that we need in the region to achieve the global agendas will only occur if various levels and sectors of government are working and speaking to each other and place local action at the very heart of sustainable development. And I think the discussion today will provide an opportunity to hear directly from the experience on the ground. And I look forward to working with you and all of your partners, all of our partners in the ECD region in the coming months. Thank you all, and I hope that we have a fruitful discussion. Over to you, Mara.
Thank you very much, Telman. Thank you to Paula's introduction, and it's really a pleasure for me to be here and to bring you some quick notes building on the experience that Italy have in terms of multi-level governance, integration among reviews at different levels, and what we have learned from the mistakes and from the work that we have carried out on the ground. We're not starting from the scratch. I mean that localizing the SDGs has turned into an acceleration in 2023. We have the next one, please. We have an high impact initiatives, Local 2030 coalition. All of you have a huge part of the coalition will bring over and push all our efforts in terms of localizing the SDGs. What I would like to stress today is that since the beginning, since the roadmap of 2016 to 2023, we perfectly know what we have to focus about. It's about advocacy, it's about action, and it's about monitoring and reporting. The next one, please. Which means to me that based on our experience, there are some key points that we have to deal with, and we have tried to do that in Italy and the Italian experience. The first one is about governance. One of the main efforts, which is needed every day of our life, because it has to be nurtured in time, is about creating spaces and shared tools for enhanced collaboration among different levels of government. Which means not only to prove and to work about formal adhesion about different levels of government, but also to create activators networks, to bring the interest of different administrations at different level of government, to create a space of work, of thought, a space of discussion, which can spread and share a common language and to bring the attention of the different level on shared issues and on the achievement of the SDGs and the 2030 agenda principle. which means that we have to look into governance mechanisms for sustainable development. This is why we are hugely working on the intersection and interlinkages among localizing the SDGs and policy coherence for sustainable development, which is key to localizing and also key for promoting integrated exercises in terms of review at national, local and subnational level, which means also to promote a joint activity in terms of activated participation and stakeholder engagement. What we are seeing is that we have to work on trust, on institutional trust about the engagement of stakeholders. And we are trying to do that, promoting the interlinkages also in terms of places and spaces for discussion and engagement among different levels of government. So connecting, this is one of the key points raised by our social civil society during the VNR that Italy presented in 2022. One of the key points were about the need for strengthening the relationship between the different level of engagement at different levels. And the academia can play really a huge work in this respect, both in terms of governance, both in terms of engagement of stakeholders and right holders. Also, we are using the academia to support, directly support the engagement and the endorsement by territorial institutions in delivering as the sustainable development agendas and to promote the implementation of the 2030 agenda, which also deals with bringing out and accompanied by the national level the integration of the exercises of review at the United Nations. The next one, please. What we have experienced in 2022 was an integrated, we call that an integrated voluntary review. We brought in 18 among regions and metropolitan cities, delivering 12 integrated VLRs, which were part of the voluntary national review. Stakeholder engagement, localizing the SDG, and policy coherence for sustainable development were the key at the heart of our national review. And in the meantime, from 2022, we have continued and we continue working with the territories for accompanying them in their efforts for delivering sustainable agenda and voluntary local reviews, which means, in our view, that territories have to work, and we are accompanying them on three main key points. The first one is delivering local governance for sustainable development, and we have to empower the steering committees that they have created among their administrations to steer and to coordinate the implementation of 2030 agenda. The second is to deliver and to implement and review and monitor and assess the sustainability frameworks that they are delivering. We have 18 regional strategies approved in Italy and 9 metropolitan agenda out of 14 delivered at metropolitan level. And then we can use some pilot actions. We are doing that with them to concentrate funding and prioritizing the routing of the 6 transitions that the UN have delivered and will be further discussed in the next year. So this kind of approach can be further complemented by working on what we call the enablers for sustainable development. Policy coherence, culture for sustainability, so the combination among education, training and information, and the huge work on collaborative institutions and partnerships, both within the multi-level governance and with the stakeholder engagement, are key to deliver fruitful, integrated and really effective regional strategies and agendas, as well as UN reviews and reports, which are part of the process, are points all along the process that we carry on in every day of our jobs. The last one, please, which means to bring further attention on the use and the usefulness of policy coherence for sustainable development for localizing the SDGs. This combination and this interlinkage have been stressed along 2023 in different recommendations, has been stressed in political declaration. What we would like to stress in this channel discussion, and I really do thank the organizers and all of you for your participation, is that working onto multi-level governance means working on policy coherence for sustainable development and shared tools and instruments to deliver effective policies for increase of capacity and achieve the SDGs. So I do think
that this combination can be clever to really push the effectiveness of our efforts in delivering the SDGs in the next coming years. I thank you very much.
Okay, I think we should now move to the next session, which is the panel discussion. Just allow me a few minutes to introduce myself and share a few words. It's an honor to be here. Very glad to meet again older friends and to meet new friends and new partners. I really think it's impressive how the SDG localization movement has been booming in the past few years. I remember we started back in 2014, so even before the Geneva 2030 were in place. We met in Turin for a global debate on localizing the post-2015 agenda. And now, after 10 years, we're here with many more people and many more practices and many more experiences that we are sharing. And it's really giving us a sign that we have a strong community of practice, community of knowledge, and I may say also community of commitment. Why commitment? Because in my understanding, voluntary local reviews are really the key example of voluntary actions, even more than voluntary national reviews. Because for the national level, there is a sort of enforcement mechanism through the level political forum. For the local level, voluntary reviews are really at a voluntary basis by local authorities. So that's a great opportunity for us to share experience and to learn from each other, increase our joint work on the ground. A few words. I'm Andrea Franini. I work, next slide, please. I work as coordinator of strategic units in a research center called ARCO. ARCO stands for Action Research for Co-Development. We are based in Italy, by Florence. We support organizations, local authorities that want to have a positive impact on the society. How? Next, please. We basically provide research services, research activities, technical assistance and consultancy, and training. Next, we are active on a few topics. One is on social economy and sustainable management. One is about inclusive development. We have an area that I coordinate on local development. We have an area on circular innovation and sustainable commodities. We have our research unit on behavioral insights, which is the last one, and we have a cross-cutting service on monitoring and evaluation. And in the next slides, I just highlighted a few of our works on SDG localization in the recent years. We had the opportunity to collaborate with UN Habitat on a global research on multi-level governance, and recently also to contribute with a review on existing VLR guidelines that pave the way also for their action-oriented methodology that I invite you to have a look at. We have conducted a global research for UNDP on good practices for SDG localization, and we have supported Metropolitan City of Florence and Metropolitan City of Rome Capital in Italy for their VLR. We have supported also Metropolitan City of Florence for their metropolitan agenda, and in the past few years, and right now, we are delivering the Italian VLR guidelines. We are piloting a new initiative, which is the Youth Local Review, that I'm happy to share information with you later. And we are conducting a big project funded by Horizon Europe on sustainability performances. So having said that, I'll now move to be the bad guy moderating the session. Just to remind us, we want to discuss about multi-level governance in action. And in the next slides, you can see how we have framed that with UN Habitat by highlighting on the left side three main dimensions and drivers of multi-level governance for SDG localization, which resonates with the guiding questions for the debate today. One is about vertical integration, so at the top level, so the institutional coordination across government levels. On the left side, you find the policy interaction across sectors and domains in a place, and also stakeholder engagement and cooperation. And we strongly believe, with based on the experience, that these drivers then may enable a process of SDG localization by enabling disabling factors, by allowing practices, outputs, and specific outcomes. So I will take this again, these three dimensions as main elements for the discussion. Let me now move to the real role. So we have 5 distinguished panelists for today. 4 are in person and 1 is connected online. I will follow this order. I cannot take that much time to introduce with the bios for each speaker because you guys have around 7 minutes each. And again, I'll do my best to show you signs when you are need to get closer to close your speech. Let's start. So the order is the one in the program. Can you go on the next slide, please? And the main guiding question is, how does multi-level governance through these interactions between national reviews, subnational reviews, and local reviews can enhance policy coherence for SDG implementation? So as much as possible, I advise you to share insights and lessons learned and examples on how you have dealt in your own places with vertical integration, horizontal integration, and stakeholder engagement. So we'll now start with the first panelist, who is here at my side, is Mr. Vakhtang Lomyara from the Municipal Department of Economic Development in Tbilisi, Georgia. So the floor is yours, and thank you for your speech.
Thank you, Dr. Fermi. I would like to start from greetings and thanks, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Madam Director, speakers and guests. It's very important for us to share our experience and also get experience together and collectively in your organizations, your cities, and your countries. Tbilisi is a big city by its population, by its human capital, by territorial and economic power in our region. But of course, we have our strengths and weaknesses in our development. Social and economic development discussion separately are very difficult, but the environmental development is possible. But all three of these lines of directions are very, very important for sustainable development. And sometimes we do very hard work for not having a situation when we have problems, when we already cannot change something in positive, and we are and have worked to work with systemic problems, which makes people's life problematic and with a lower quality. For environmental development, Tbilisi created a very systemic attitude by not only rehabilitation of green areas, and we have done it for more than 100 hectares in Tbilisi, 15 huge and big size parks, and also 60 green islands. We started to create new green areas, quite big ones, on new places which we're not using for economic, for urban development, and so on and so forth. But we are creating really big areas in Tbilisi, where also SME sector is creating businesses around the population, with more availability of employment, and it's also affecting environment, economic and social development also. During last years, even though that we have quite huge problem with pollution and with increasing numbers of vehicles in Tbilisi, annually growing from 8 or 11%, so of course, differing from COVID period or not. We have decreased air pollution numbers a bit in some areas, and with a lot with some areas. We planted more than 2 million plants, where 1.7 million were of flowers, but 400,000 were trees and bushes, and we are continuing with this. But also, what we have changed during last 5 years, we made it more systemic and more sustainable, and contractor companies are obliged now to care for some period on trees they are planting, and bushes and green areas, of course. Also, we restored some part of pine trees, which were systemic and almost 100% diseased in Tbilisi, and it was majority of our forest. And we had a sanitary cut for 114,000 pine trees, but we replaced almost half already, together with private and public sector, and also with NGOs also. And we are continuing this job, but it is a very, very systemic problem. But we have found key how to deal with this. Also, for development of social, economic, and youth, health, city and healthy lifestyle, we started to create two multifunctional centers, quite big, in two peripheral areas in Tbilisi, so west and east critical territories, which were approximately 12,000 and 13,000 square meters. And we'll already finish one of them in May, and the next one till the end of this year. And this will create more availability and better access for youth on sports, on art, and other circles for them who are in need of financing and make it more easy. I also would like to tell a bit about the main processes of evaluation of sustainability, of creating a VLR document for Tbilisi together with UN Habitat, and I would like to express my big thanks and very, very important role of Mr. Hellman in this process, which we started for last year, which we were planning to finish for this May or June. But and also we created task force meeting. We started collection of data. We started collection of strategic documents and analyzing them. But this plan are a bit postponed because of HR issues and because of human capital issues. But we are on a very important process for evaluation of policy development and localization of SDGs, which are very, very important for local population. Tbilisi is on the best indicators and data on its economy, social, poverty. Indicators are best now, and it's changed during the last 7 years from 0.24 to 0.15. I mean, population living under the line of poverty, but it's still huge numbers for Tbilisi population. And while even 100 or 10 persons are struggling with poverty and with less access on education, with less access on health, we will have to change more and make and gather more examples from developed countries, developing countries, and so on and so forth. So please, the next slides. And also, Tbilisi started huge reform of transport system, and this is the #1 reform by digits for us. And as I have mentioned, so number of private vehicles are huge. Approximately 1/3 of mobility is done by private, 1/3 is done by public. But public transport is becoming more and more popular. We have produced several hundred new buses. We have modernized subway system, and approximately 6 million Georgian lari were expanded during the last 7 years. And we are continuing this reform. And of course, we have to say no to some other reforms because this one is now very, very important for us, creating new lines for bicycles for better access. But of course, a local landscape is quite mountainous, while minimum places on 400 meters from sea level, and maximum is approximately 1,300 from sea level. It's quite difficult, even though that I was a cyclist. It was quite big struggle for me, and big difficult for me to reach some places. I were trying to use bicycles, but we are continuing to create more than 240 kilometers network of bicycle places. Next slide, please. And approximately half of mentioned budgets were for subway and buses renovation and buying just new ones. And Tbilisi has now one of the newest fleet of buses and exceeding 1,000 buses for the first time in Tbilisi history. And we are trying to popularize this and making it more comfortable.
We need to get.
Yes, because of time is limited, once again, thank you very much for your sharing your experience and giving ability to use this platform, and wishing all the best to all participants. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Baktan. Very interesting the examples and practices of implemented actions across the 3 dimensions of sustainability, and also the VLR process that you are engaging with together with human habitats. Let's move now to the second speaker, is Ms. Alina Bilan. She's advisor to the Association of Communities of Romania. And so the floor is yours, and we look forward to listen to the experience of the Voluntary Subnational Review of the country.
Thank you, Mr. Ferranini. First of all, I want to congratulate the organizer for choosing such an important subject for the SDG. And second, dear guests, dear madam and sirs, dear speakers, I'm very happy to share with you the first VSR in Romania and the experience of drafting and presenting this VSR. Next slide, please. So my presentation concentrates on the role of local government association in the multi-level governance to enhance policy coherence for the achievement of SDGs. So the first Romanian VSR, because Romania was the 26th state that prepared a VSR and presented to the UN High-Level Political Forum in New York City last year, was prepared by the Romanian Association of Communes, which comprises 2,862 communes, where 9 million people are living, and the Romanian Municipalities Association, which comprises 109 municipalities where 8 million people are living, and together they represent 90% of Romania's population. So you can see why this VSR was very representative for the local government projects and priorities in Romania. It was for the first time that local government associations were involved formally in the preparation of the VNR. Furthermore, VNR dedicated an entire subsection to the Romanian VSR, and acknowledging the role of local government association and local governments for the achievement of SDGs, because they are delivering policies and crucial services for the achievement of SDGs. So this way, the VSR became an appendix to the VNR. Furthermore, due to this strong collaboration and dialogue during the preparation of VNR and VSR, this dialogue ensured that the VSR was complementary to the VNR. Next slide, please. But the VSR is not only a monitoring exercise; it's much more than that. So besides being a successful reporting exercise with good practice cases across the whole country, this VSR reflects the contribution of Romanian communes and municipalities to the achievement of SDGs. It highlights priorities, needs of diverse communities, and furthermore, giving voice to the less wealthy communities, thus leaving no one behind. And this is very important. On the right side of the presentation, you can see how the local governments are prioritizing the SDGs. Because they are still basic needs that still required to be covered satisfactorily. On the left side of the presentation, you can see highlighted some barriers shown and highlighted by the VSR. And one of these barriers for the better achievement of the SDGs is that there are still disparities. And there are territorial inequalities. There are disparities between rural communities and urban communities, between communes and municipalities. Furthermore, this VSR shows barriers to the better ownership and implementation of SDGs, which are the lack of sufficient funding, reduced administrative capacity, and of course, a low awareness of the SDG, of the UN agenda, and of the national sustainable development strategy. Next one, please. But what are they? How is the Romanian VSR is leveraging that data? Well, AMR and ACOR and the national government will adapt their future actions to the VSR conclusions and recommendations. Furthermore, once they collected information, ACOR and AMR realized that their members had an important contribution that had been already made to sustainable development from the bottom up. But also, VSR increased the awareness and commitments of their members because it was a participatory process led by the local government association who during the elaboration of their VSR, and this process created a sense of ownership and belonging and forged unity among the members of the NGAs. Another important aspect was that the VSR highlighted that there is a strong need of sustainable development staff, trained staff in the local administration. And thus, the VSR confirms the national government extending training program for 1,600 employees of local governments in the field of sustainable development. And this is a very good example of policy coherence between the national and local government. And other aspect important is that the local government association, after this VSR experience, will provide support to the mayors to align their local development strategies, planning, and budgeting with the SDGs. Next, please. I want to share with you also a good practice case because the LGAs are preparing also collaborative events in partnership with the Department of Sustainable Development. They popularize the VSR results at each local government association meetings. And furthermore, AMR and ACOR are always consulting the local government at each step of the national decision-making progress. But until now, they were doing it by collecting emails and opinions from the local government. And you realize what a long time it's to process all the data and to submit to the national government in due time. So they implemented these two online platforms. F2 is for AMR and PACT belongs to ACOR. And these online platforms will be used to collect and to process data from all the local governments. So these two platforms will be also used to collect data in good practice cases for localizing SDG. Next, please. As a conclusion, I want to stress that VSR creates synergies with the VLR and creates and enhances awareness of the SDGs and provided the occasion for the members to share good practice cases, to learn from each other, to transfer know-how, and gave the opportunity for the smaller and less wealthy communities to be heard and to share what are they doing. And of course, this way, we realize that LGAs have a key position because they are a catalyst of dialogue and cooperation between the national and local governments. And this way, because it contributes to revamping local national relations for sustainable development, it strengthens the local government association for approach to sustainability and create stronger ties with and among their members. VSI is a policy tool, so it's more than a reporting exercise. And as final thing I want to share with you, an important aspect is that yesterday UCLG launched this impact assessment of the VSRs. You have in the presentation also the link, this impact assessment of the VSR impacts. It's called an insight note from the of the incremental impacts of VSR as told by the association who produced them. And of course, Romania has a contribution to this note. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and looking forward to hear the next presentation.
Thank you very much, Alina. Very interesting and very relevant experiences in your country. Thanks especially for having highlighted the role of association of local authorities and local governments in bridging the national and the local level, and also having allowed that VSR, VLR are much more than monitoring their real policy tool. And also, I got the point of the importance of staff training programs in the local municipalities about all these issues. Let's now move to the third speaker, who is Mr. Elder Costa, Head of Sustainability in the city of Braga in Portugal. So you have a very important experience based on your slide. So please, the floor is yours and share as much as possible in the time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the organization to invite Braga to participate in this event. We are very proud to be here to show our case. Yeah, my presentation could be 7 minutes or 2 hours, depending what you want to hear from us. But I will resume for the most interesting thing that I think that we can share, our strategy, our process to the citizens, the decision making that we create in 2019 when the mayor created this topic in municipality. The Sustainable Development Goals is now public policy in Braga, and in the last years we have a 3 recognition that I would like to share with you. The first one, we are the one of 10 cities in the world. Now it's surpassed this number. I think now it's 15 maybe, but we have the certification with Buena Vita in silver. With Mafra too, there are 2 Portuguese cities in this kind of certifications. The second one, pass the slide please. Next, we are one of the 5 sustainability policies in Portugal according to the project of Green Flag, the ECO 21 by the association Blue Flags. Next, please. And with a study, a national study from the platform research center, maybe I can say that, CESOP Local, it belongs to the University, Catholic University of Portugal, that put Braga in achievement in almost 70% of this. Next. And this tracking we could you could see here, the tracking of overall SDGs, and we can see how Braga is development and making the strategic execution of every policy that we make in Braga, and see the achievement that we have to each one SDG. Next, please. So this is our model that we created in 2019. It started with community engagement. I only explained the first level of the position that Braga are in this kind of sustainability, and it allows us to create the first sustainable report. And it's important to say that Braga is not, we don't have a defined VLR. We have a sustainable report, and now this process that Braga creates, it's like a VLR. So we adopt a different approach of this kind of report and review, but the overall strategy is a VLR. Next, please. I will share only again, please. I will speak only for this community decision process. We have four steps of this community. First, it's a mapping of stakeholders, and we have a lot of stakeholders. As we are a city, so imagine the number of stakeholders that we have. Second one is the relevant themes that we are identified. Sorry, thank you. The relevant themes and topics that we need to identify for make alignment with the SDG. The third step is the engagement and how we can talk and involve this kind of stakeholders. And the last one is the result analysis that I will show you next. Next, please. So this is a group of stakeholders that we have in Braga. It's start with the community, and for example, business community, municipal companies, the waste and the water management, governmental entities, education, etc. And we ask them to classify Braga with their expectations about our policies for sustainable development. We was assessed by very good, so it's good for us to be in this level for our community. Next, please. So this is a result of our engagement with our stakeholders. So in the vertical axis, you can see the expectations for our stakeholders for a lot of topics, and the horizontal axis, you can see the expectations for the municipal executive. That means the mayor and the councillors. So there are a lot of topics that the community think that are very relevant. But with this analysis, we can conclude three things. The first one is there are a great alignment with the expectations of our community and expectations of the municipality to all these topics that are related to the SDGs. The second one is that citizens and our stakeholders look for the city in a different way. That's imagine 10 years ago, the same citizens look for the public policies. If we made this kind of analysis 10 years ago, economic development could be the first topic, or environmental topics doesn't count for this kind of expectation. And the third one is that mobility, waste management, energy and water, that's imagine only environmental topics that are the with higher expectations from the community and from the municipality. Next, please. So for this process, we made some engagement with our community, but we have also a strategic council for sustainable development. We have auscultation councils for each topic that we see there, but we need to create another level of the council. So we call this strategic, and we invite the universities of the Braga that are established in Braga, University of Minho, Catholic University, WIPCA, and the big research center in Braga. INL is a nanotechnology laboratory in Iberian nanotechnology laboratory. We invite also the different levels of government in that region, Cabo region and North region. BCSD, the Business Council for Sustainable Development, is a branch of Portugal of the World BCSD, and 3 national experts in sustainable development and 3 local citizens experts. So this is interesting because a lot of citizens are experts in sustainability in Braga, but we don't know who they are. So we make a context for this participation on 3 people that we are here is cities that we choose in this context. And next, please. I will finish only my presentation, only speak with the networks because represents the relation that we have in Braga, what we are doing at the local level, national level, European level, and global level. So I will ask to pass a few slides to the networks. Yeah, we study megatrends, the 4 megatrends that we are. Next, please. Next. And networks after this. Yeah. Again, please. No, miss a slide. Yeah, great. So we have 3 different levels to act in sustainable development. One of the umbrella organizations like United Nations or European Union. But there are defined networks that we work deeply, SDCSN, that create a branch in Portugal, and we are very aligned with this initiative. Eurocities is not a network to sustainability, but there are a lot of work in task force at Braga participate. One of them with the city of Mannheim in Germany, CMR and Covenant of Mayors. There are different European program projects, and one There are one that I would like to highlight. This is Urbact. We participate in Global Goals for Cities, a project pilot for Urbact. Participate 70 cities, only to localize SDG at the European level. And the success of this pilot was so high that Urbact accepted our candidacy to create another network in the project of Urbact Cities for Sustainable Governance. What we are doing is there are different types of governance for sustainability, and we are working with 8 cities in Europe to trying to achieve faster the Agenda 2030. So there are a few national networks that we are working on. The CESOP network that I showed in the slide and the tracking that we are making. SDG local, it's a different type of platform or interface to help us. And for example, the Association of Municipalities of Portugal that create a section to municipalities work on SDG. So this is our experience, fast experience that I want to show you and highlight. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Adler. Thank you, especially for having shared your strategic model, which have shaped all the process that you're leading in Braga. That's very, very interesting, and also how that reflects on stakeholder engagement and to really make the process people-centered and place-based at the same time, and also the contribution that you guys are giving to a global community of practices. It's impressive. We'll now continue on our journey, but we keep in Portugal with a speech by Mr. Pedro Das Neves, who is professor and the Global Solutions Owner and Funder in Portugal. So the floor is yours and your 7 minutes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. And actually, I'm going to start with the research that we have done in Japan with my colleague Yunamba from Toyo University. And then I will bring what we have learned in terms of what I call the third generation of implementation of SDGs, and then how we are doing it in Portugal. So we can go to the next slide. So what is very interesting? What was very interesting, and the reason to go and look for what's happening in Japan is that Japan had 4 cities presenting the VLR in 2018. So along with New York. And why is this? And Prime Minister Abe, he said, if we have been looking for the balance between man and nature for so long, and now this is called SDGs, then we are an SDG country. And he created a headquarters for SDG implementation. And the cabinet is part of the SDG headquarters. And so basically, he gave a very clear sign from central administration on what was important for the nation to find this balance between people and planet, and simultaneously, the second paragraph of the VNR the first VNR in Japan is that we cannot do this alone. We have to do this with stakeholders, and we have to do it with the private sector. So the message was clear. The next slide. So I'm calling this the first generation, which is top down. The second generation is bottom up. So basically what happened is that these mayors that saw that there was a SDG headquarter at national level, they replicated the model, and they have SDG headquarters in city level. And so the mayors become the general managers of these headquarters, and they implement the voluntary local review aligned with VNR. So I think this is the top down and bottom up that is very interesting. You can go to the next slide. And so what happened is that they, again, from the VNR and followed at the VLR stage, it was clear that the central administration and the local administration, they had to deal with non-for-profit organizations, so the civil society, and they had to deal with private sector and for-profit organizations. What is very interesting is that we see today in Japan negative demography, and so the country in 2000, it was 120 million, now is 100 million, and it will be 40 million, 60 million. by the end of the century. And this means that the cities, they keep the same assets to be maintained, but the fiscal space is decreasing. And because the fiscal space is decreasing, you have to be creative and you have to bring in the private sector. And so it was what I call the third generation. So it's top down, bottom up, left to right, right to left, and everybody has to work together. That's what I'm calling the 4G, for the 4 dimensions integration. So I'm now going to, yes, the next slide, please. So basically, this is some of the pictures that we took in the different cities. It's very important to realize that Shimokawa is probably the smallest VLR in the world, 3,000 residents. So it's very amazing that we have, you know, a city with 3,000 doing a VLR, and then we have Tokyo with 40 million also doing a VLR. And this is what my colleague Professor Yunamba designed. The VLR implementation flower designed by her. Let's go to the next slide. So again, the point and the article that we produced is open source, and so we will be pleased that you go and you learn more on this. Next slide. So basically, the point is that the world is moving east. The center of gravity is in Asia, and so we have to understand what the tigers are doing. And out of the 4 tigers, just last week I was in New Taipei, and in New Taipei also understanding how they are localizing the SDGs. So it's very interesting. They have put goal 11 in orange in the center, and then the character for people in Chinese is these like the 2 legs, and they have redesigned the New Taipei logo. And I insist because they insisted, you know, this slide actually was prepared by them. And they said, we'll be more than happy to exchange collaboration. We want to have people come into Taipei and to learning and sharing. And look at the circle in red, because we are going to that's the New Taipei VLR. Next slide now. So now we're entering into what we are doing. And I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really thankful to Shipra, to Martino, to Daifet, to Xiaoqing, that have been creating and pushing us in Portugal to implement what we call, and has been like the very important guidance, the SDGs city approach. Basically, what we have to see is that year 1 is about civil certification. We call it SDG awareness. Year 2 is about VLR planning. Year 3 is about platinum certification. It's about institutional reinforcement. And year 4 is about pipeline, is about implementing the projects on the ground. So let's now see what we are doing on this. So basically, next, yes. So basically, we like to say that the first step is to brief the SDGs, is to understand and adopt the SDGs as a political and strategic program. After is about planning the future we want with the people, for the people, and develop the VLR. Then to organize, to create, to reinforce the institutions, to create labs, alliances, municipal development companies or organizations. And this is the platinum phase. And then the diamond phase, which is to implement the project pipeline. And so it's very clear, it has to be simple. You know, SDGs implementation have to be simple, and we have to go beyond VLR. VLR is important, but then what are we going to do with VLRs? So next slide, please. Yeah, 2 minutes, I'll finish. So basically, this is the opening speech from the mayor of Mafra, which is really important, amazing work that they have been doing. And again, the strength that he says, this is a way for decision makers to improve their process, but also a way to speak with civil society. Next slide. And so I would say this is the gold phase. Now we are talking about the pipeline. What is interesting is that when we start working with the pipeline, so after the VLR, the initial pipeline was below 100 million, and now it's north of 1 billion euros, which is amazing, you know? So you're using the VLR to think about the future and to create a pipeline of projects for people to know why are we talking SDGs? How are we going to improve? And how can we participate? Next slide. And so, next slide. So basically, this is the institutional reinforcement. And I think this is just before the last. And so institutional reinforcement, basically we have three legs. So the local lab, so it's basically the control tower where we measure everything that is happening in the city to implement. The alliance with civil society and the private sector. What is the city doing does the city expect? And then very important, if you have a pipeline of 1 billion, then you have to have a special vehicle to bring in the capital providers, the investors, and ensure this is the good place to invest. And this is also a place where we can improve quality of life, raise salaries, and protect the planet. And so, next slide, next and last. And so this is the amazing team of Mafra More Sustainable. And you see the documents that are now being produced to implement the lab, implement the alliance, implement the SDG Co. And at the same time, you see that I was in New Taipei last week. This was yesterday. So now in Mafra, we are already studying the New Taipei VLR, and we are willing to study all other VLRs because it's amazing. You know, it's amazing to be here and amazing to learn from each other, and together we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pedro. So you have shared with us experience from all of that side of the world, which are very, very interesting. And again, reinforce the community that we all represent. And thanks, especially because you have highlighted the way that the VLR process has been evolving thanks to the experiences across the world and the importance, same as in Braga before, of keeping together, understanding, using, reinforcing, implementing the activities at different levels. We now move to the last speaker who is connected online. It's Mr. Stefan Wagner, Head of International Affairs and Global Sustainability from the city of Bonn in Germany. So Stefan, I hope you can hear us well and we can see your slides and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much indeed. And sorry for not to be with you in person today. I hope you can hear me well. I was planning to participate in person, but the Germany railway strike yesterday hit me very badly, so I had to stay at home. Very sorry for this. I would like to give you just a short insight into a practical example of SDG localization here in Bonn in the specific sector of mobility transition and touching the three dimension of both horizontal and vertical integration as well as stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. Yeah, just since we in this VLR workshop and a lot has been said about VLRs, I just wanted to give you some background on Bonn. We were among the first cities in Germany, at least, to present the VLR in 2020. We did another one in 2022. Our VLR follows the structure of our sustainability strategy, and this strategy is based on 6 fields of action, of activity in the city of Bonn, including, for example, mobility, climate and energy, natural resources, but also labor, social participation, and others. And the VLR is a communication tool. It is also a stock-taking tool to present or to take track about how successful we are in implementation of our strategy and where we need to improve. And I can strongly recommend and encourage cities that haven't yet done a VLR to do so in the future. Next slide, please. You can skip that one, please. Next one. And this one as well, and then the next one. Thank you. As I said, I would like to reach out just to give you an idea on a very practical tools or instruments we do in implementation of the SDGs in the mobility sector. Mobility transition is a very important political sector here in the city of Bonn because it is a large emittent of CO2 emissions. And this is why it's also ranks very high at the political agenda of our mayor and of our city council. So the city council decided in 2019 that we want to have a share of eco-mobility in Bonn. This is mobility that doesn't come from individual motorized traffic. So it is bicycle mobility, public transportation, walking, etc. by 75% in 2030. And we also have a very strong citizens movement on that mobility transition that brought up a decision, a bicycle decision in 2020 to force the city to improve on the transition as well. So this is why the mayor established a mobility transition program and a program office in her department when she took office in 2020. with the responsibility to work across all the departments of the city of Bonn that have to do with mobility issues. It can be the city planning department, the economic department, the greenery department, and many others, as well as with external stakeholders like companies, like public associations, initiatives, to really make this mobility transition working, and also to do internal and external communication on that issue. So this is one example, just a very brief example on how horizontal integration works in a city, because you have to work across all the departments and you have to break the silo thinking that is very often existed in the various departments. Next slide, please. On stakeholder development and engagement, this is also part of our mobility transition. So we reach out to the neighborhoods, to the people in the smaller neighborhoods, and try to get them on board in these activities, because it goes without saying that mobility transition is also a part of policy that not everyone likes, and there's some opposition against as well. So what we try to do is to reach out to the citizens to get them involved. And we have this idea of Viertel, so neighborhood projects, where we want to relieve residents from this through traffic and from the parking pressure, and give them the space back for social activities, for cultural activities, for better life quality. So we do so with a lot of activities. We call them Bernsche Viertel Days. So a number of randomly selected citizens to have all the age groups, all the various backgrounds together. We integrate them in workshops and let them think about how the city, how the neighborhood of the future should look like. And this is accompanied by cultural and other events. And as you can see at the pictures, we also do some examples on how this new setting of a neighborhood could look like. The ideas that came up is, of course, more green spaces, for example, more playgrounds and more sporting facilities in the city neighborhoods. And the whole process is scientifically supported and currently under evaluation, and will then be also integrated in our political transition, mobility transition planning. Next slide, please. Important in this regard is also the data monitoring. We do a transparency report every second year, because we want to showcase the citizens on how effective we are with the transition, mobility transition in our city. And we use a number of indicators, because it is very important to have indicators that make it very clear for politicians, but also for the local public, to see how successful we are or not. And you can see a number of these indicators here on the slide. And we currently are in the process of upsetting a dashboard where we can inform on various aspects, not only on the mobility field with latest data, so that everyone can see how things are developing in this field. Final slide, please. Yeah, vertical integration. This is the last point of the last aspect of mobility transition. It is very important, and it has been said by lots of speakers today, that vertical integration is really key. And this is also our strong commitment here in Bonn. Our mayor, who was a former member of parliament, is very active in various activities. She's vice president of the German Association of Cities. She's also a member of the German Council for Sustainable Development and of networks, just as IGLE. And she lobbies on all regional, national, European, international level to have a stronger role of cities in the policy development. I think this is very key. Unfortunately, no one from the German government side is here with our meeting today, but I think we make good progress in including cities in the development of, for example, the German sustainability strategy, but also the voluntary national review, where we had for the first time an annex of local and regional authorities. But as I hear from my colleagues in Portugal, and there's a lot of improvement, maybe also in Germany, to really integrate cities in the design of sustainability activities on a national level. Because it is very important, as we all know, the change happens on local ground, and these big policy programs like mobility transition, like social inclusion, like many others, like the energy transformation, only works if we have the legal framework and the legal context to do so, but also the financial means. Thank you very much. I hope this was short enough to leave some room for discussion. Happy to answer any question, and thank you very much again for providing me the opportunity to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Short enough, but very interesting the way that you have shown that the three dimensions of multi-level governance, horizontal integration, stakeholder engagement, vertical integration, they reflect on the practices on the ground, especially in the case of sustainable mobility in Bonn. We now open the session for Q&A. That's both online and in person. So please feel free to raise your hand or write down the question in the chat. We already have one question that I guess it's for Alina for Romania. And the question comes from the chat saying, thanks for sharing. This person is interested to know what is the definition of commute in your context and how did you collect the data on the importance presented for them?
Oh, such a hard question. Thank you for the question. It was very difficult to gather data because we do not have statistical or SDG indicators at local level. So the data were collected by using questionnaires and by using good practice cases. And how did we find out about these good practice cases? But first of all, I have to explain what is a commune. Well, according to administrative code, a commune is a territorial administrative unit, which is a rural one, and municipalities are bigger cities with more than 200,000 people inhabited. And we use questionnaires answered by the mayors. The rate of response was amazing because we had 70 municipalities out of 109 answering the questionnaires, and out of the 2,862 communes, more than 535 mayors answered. So we had a good, a solid response rate. And the municipalities and communes used by the local government association, they are giving prizes to the mayors who achieved some different projects in their communities. And this is how we gather data, because every year they are awarding their mayors for different kind of projects done for their community. And this is how we gather data, because we do not have statistical or SDG indicators at local level. It was 6 months work.
Thank you. Any question from Claudia? Yes.
Yes, hello, hi, I'm Agata Krause, I work for UNVeiling.
Can you stand up, please?
Yes, and I have a question to Mara Costo, because you were talking about VLR, VSR, VNR integration, and I was wondering how did the approach that you were talking about translate it into data governance? Specifically, how did it alternate maybe the way of developing the VNR's data collection centered around national statistics office into maybe more elaborate data governance system? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. Just a quick response. We have a data governance for SDGs in Italy. We have common and shared indicators at national level, covering also the local level. There are 55 primary indicators, we call them at least. And we are working on further localization of such indicators with the National Institute for Statistics and with all the system of statistics in our country. So the integrated efforts in the review was based on this primary, on the use of the this data and these shared indicators, and we are further working on the issue in the next VNRs, because it's quite a huge one. And it's part of the accompaniment approach, let's say, that we are experiencing in the interaction among national, regional, and local level to deliver common efforts for the SDGs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. And yes.
Thank you. My name is Elena Ovchinnikova and I represent FAO. Mara mentioned briefly in the presentation local strategic commission, which this year and next year is co-chaired by FAO and UN Habitat. And the Heimbach Initiative on Localization actually has one of its goals, making sure that there's an alignment between VNRs, VSRs, and VLRs. And this was extremely interesting for me to hear the presentations from really from the ground and how this was done. And I was absolutely inspired by, and I'm still to read the article about the third generation of VNR. So I think we are not, we don't see that in all locations yet. I think we are still very much at the second generation where active communities, municipalities are doing the VLRs or VSRs by themselves, and that does not always link to the VNRs. And this is where my question comes from. Based on your advice on working on VLRs and VSRs, what would you give as an advice or recommendation to those who want to do it, let's say, in the coming years, bearing in mind, of course, that not all countries do VNRs all the time. But how can they really ensure that there are more linkages between the VLRs and VNRs? And again, for those who are doing it for the first time, what would be your advice since you've walked already this talk? And maybe, and again, if there's anything that.
Thank you. I think I always like to start with what is the future that we want, and to ask this. And I think it's important that we ask this within the municipalities, and then we ask this too in workshops with the civil society, with the private sector, and to start talking about where we are, but where we want to be in 2030, 2045, and so on. And I think it's very important, and people understand, and people adhere to the process. If they understand that if we want to achieve this, this is going to represent organization, projects, and this is going to represent financing, and especially I would say that it's going to represent funding. So we have to design projects in a way for the private sector to enter and to know that they're going to get their return back. And I believe that when people understand that we are talking about the tangible future, we are talking about something that makes sense, something that is going to create jobs, something where companies, private sector investors are going to get their return as long as they have people first and they protect the planet, then it's magic, So the most important thing, it really is communication, but it is communication not just to achieve the VLR, obviously a great PR document, but it has to be, and it can be much more than that. So it can be, as someone was saying, the starting point for the future, but then it's important that people understand, I want to be in, because I'm going to live better. I want to be in because I'm going to protect the planet, and I want to be in because actually there's business involved. And I think this third generation, the fact that you start talking about the private sector and involving the private sector, and so it's not just about public policy, but it is public policy that deals with private dynamics, then things get traction. And I really believe my advice would be for people to have this perspective, this integrated perspective involving the private sector from day one, because then the whole thing will be also not just social and environmental sustainable, but economic and especially financially sustainable. And just one more thing. I believe when the Pact of the Future starts with Addis Ababa Action Agenda and starts with finance for development, we have to realize today that we are all the way in implementing SDGs, but we need finance to implement the SDGs. And these will come from the private sector.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. There is 1 minute comment by Mr. Bachtang about your experience, and then we need to close the Q&A session and go to the final remarks by the end.
Thank you. Very shortly, I will try to add issues important for vertical and horizontal integration and stakeholders engagement. This last one is some of them are systemic and some of them are more sporadic. We have mobile applications called Fixed Release, where local population can show us what are problems and just photo and ask us to change this or that. Also, we have your idea of city mayor, where local population are able to somehow offer new reforms, which is possible to discuss and then implement. But I would not say that this last one was very, very successful and because of the examples. For vertical integration, so even in VLR process, we are in close coordination with central government with the head of administration, with VNR process, which is going parallel, but it will be a bit earlier than our project of VLR of stability. And also they are co-financing of our reforms, for example, transport reform, which is financed by central government for more than 130 million euros equivalent with special transfer for Tbilisi. And with horizontal integration, we also work, of course, together with other departments where we filter both and make joint projects together for finance projects. Also, we mainly Tbilisi is helping material way other municipalities which are needing infrastructure, transport, or other issues. And also, of course, we discuss problems and share information during forums or business meetings, which we do it quite frequently. And when we do something, other municipalities are also quite fast making examples from Tbilisi, then make copy or some mix of our projects.
Perfect. So let me thanks again Bogdan, Galina, Elder, Pedro, and Stefan for having shared their experiences. And now we go for the closing by
Thank you, Andrea. Dear participants, so this event has successfully highlighted the real core role of multi-level governance, localizing SDGs, and in accelerating their implementation. It also clearly illustrated the central role of local of the voluntary reviews at all levels, at national, subnational, and local levels, and also linking them. So therefore, let me thank above all our outstanding speakers today, representing Italy, representing cities of Braga, Bonn, Tbilisi, as well as the Association of Communes of Romania, the Global Solutions from Portugal, for sharing their inspiring insights and their experiences on this topic. Thanks also to the audience for useful inputs, and to the representative of ARCO for his skillful moderation of the event. And lastly, once again, big thanks to our co-organizers of the event, our partners, UN Habitat, UNDESA, and the United Cities and local governments, and of course, my UNEP colleagues. The voluntary reviews provide a platform for countries, regions, and localities to share experiences, good practices, and challenges in SDG implementation. And today we've seen interesting good practice that demonstrate that VNRs, VSRs, and VLRs, they strengthen multi-level sustainable development governance through fostering all of the three key components. Namely, they support both the vertical and horizontal integration by promoting coordination and cooperation across the different tiers and sectors of government. But they also facilitate meaningful stakeholder engagement. In terms of vertical integration, that aligns and coordinates the different sustainable development strategies. We saw how useful, for instance, the Romanian VSR was in this respect through enhancing awareness of the SDGs and sharing good practice among the local governments and increasing the dialogue between the local and national governments. We also learned how the national government of Italy actively enhances vertical collaboration in its different territorial levels through establishing these tangible agreements that guarantee this visible shared endorsement and also accompanies the subnational levels in boosting their sustainable development strategies. And horizontal integration, of course, is key. It transcends silos and allows this comprehensive perspective and coordinated approaches, without which it would not be possible to address the complex and interconnected challenges of poverty, inequality, and the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. So by showcasing cross-sectoral initiatives and collaborative efforts, voluntary reviews encourage governments to adopt these integrated approaches. For instance, initiatives like the Mobility Transition Program in Bonn that was presented today demonstrated concerted efforts across departments for enhancing cycling and walking infrastructure, for coordinating transition projects and communication strategies. And lastly, as we all know, meaningful stakeholder engagement is central for multi-level sustainable development governments. It amplifies the voices of communities, civil society, academia, and private sector, and all other societal actors in decision-making process. And voluntary reviews provide opportunities for these stakeholders to participate in decision-making. We learned that in Braga, Portugal, stakeholder engagement is successfully embedded in all strategic decision-making. We also learned that Tbilisi developed its VLR using stakeholder mapping, fostering collaboration with international partners, UN Habitat, and all local stakeholders. Before closing, I want to still flag what Professor Das Neves stressed, that VLR should be seen as a starting point that can be used for mapping investable projects that are aligned with SDGs, and also that we leave this room with the image of this SDG flower that he presented of in the integration. So in conclusion, I want to just reiterate that UNEC's dedication to supporting SDG implementation at all levels, in cooperation with our partners. We continue to support VLR development through the regional guidelines that are now being revised, and our related e-learning courses. And as our division director said earlier on, you are all cordially invited to the Forum of Mayors that will take place in October in Geneva, 30th of September, 1st of October, entitled The Cities Summit of the Future. And there mayors can share their best practice and contribute to our collective journey towards sustainable development. And in the name of multilateral governance, the mayors and dialogue mayors are also invited to attend the intergovernmental meeting of the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management that takes place back to the Forum of Mayors. So thank you once again for making this event successful, and I look forward to welcoming you in Geneva again in October. Thank you.